A landlocked country at the heart of Central Asia, Uzbekistan is part of a region whose history stretches back more than 2,500 years. The country is famous for its cities, which were centers of commerce on the old Silk Road trade routes that connected China with Europe. The cities were notable also for Islamic scholarship. For much of the 20th century, Uzbekistan was part of the Soviet Union, and was known as the Uzbek Soviet Socialist Republic. With the demise of the USSR, the country became an independent state in 1991 and changed its name to Uzbekistan. Area 172,742 square miles, 447,400 square kilometers. Population 2020 est. 34,221,000. Uzbekistan is bordered on the north and northwest by Kazakhstan, on the east and southeast by Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, on the southwest by Turkmenistan, and on the south by Afghanistan. The western third of the country comprises the Autonomous Republic of Karakalpakstan, in Uzbek, spelled Karakalpakstan. The capital of Uzbekistan is Tashkent. Land and climate: nearly 4/5 of Uzbekistan consists of flat, sun-baked lowlands. Plains and deserts dotted with fertile oases cover the west and central regions, while broad valleys and steppe lie in the east. The largest deserts are the Kyzylkum and the Mirzakal. The Kyzylkum is one of the largest deserts in the world. It covers much of the west and extends north across the border into Kazakhstan. The Mirzakal lies to the southwest of Tashkent in northeastern Uzbekistan. In the extreme east and northeast are several ranges of the western Tian Shan. The highest point is Beshtor Peak, situated in the Skem Range. It soars to an altitude of 14,104 feet, 4,299 meters. South of the Tian Shan lies the Fergana Valley, nestled within the Gisaro and Alay ranges. The valley extends from southeastern Uzbekistan into western Kyrgyzstan. The historic Sir Darya and Amu Darya course through the northeast and southwest, respectively. Both rivers empty into the Aral Sea, which straddles the border between Karakalpakstan and Kazakhstan. Once one of the largest inland bodies of water, the Aral has become seriously depleted due to overuse of its rivers for irrigation and industry. The Amu Darya Delta, a key resource in the western deserts, has been greatly altered. Many of its streams have dried up. The Aral itself lost much of its water volume and area in the second half of the 20th century. In some places the shoreline has receded more than 75 miles 120 kilometers. Uzbekistan's location in zone of high seismic activity makes the country vulnerable to frequent earthquakes. Some of these events measure as much as 9 on the Richter scale and cause considerable damage. Among the worst earthquakes in the last 2 centuries were the 1823 earthquake in Fergana and the 1889 and 1902 quakes in Andijan. Tashkent is in an especially active zone, and endured several severe quakes in the 19th century. On April 26, 1966, a 5.3 earthquake nearly leveled the city. In that year alone, more than 700 shocks were measured in Tashkent. The dry continental climate is marked by long, hot summers, short, cold winters, and year-round sunshine. Average temperatures in July hover around 90 degrees Fahrenheit 32 degrees Celsius, though in the daytime these can exceed 104 degrees Fahrenheit 40 degrees Celsius in the cities. January is the coldest month, when temperatures average around 10 degrees Fahrenheit (-12 degrees Celsius), though they can drop to -36 degrees Fahrenheit (-38 degrees Celsius) in some areas. Precipitation is extremely low, with approximately 8 inches (20 centimeters) of annual rainfall, most of which falls during the autumn. Virtually no rain falls during the summer months from July to September. Plants and animals: the arid Uzbek climate strongly influences the vegetation and wildlife found within the country. The vast deserts are mostly barren, though there are patches of hardy desert scrub and grasses. In the steppes are grasses and shrubs that can withstand the low rainfall. The hills and parts of the mountains receive enough moisture to support a modest growth of meadow and forest. Less than 3% of the entire country is forested, however. The mix of desert, steppe, and mountain habitat supports a highly diverse animal population. There is an abundance of bird species, from songbirds to birds of prey. Rodents, gazelles, and lizards scramble through the deserts. Wolves, foxes, deer, and antelope, notably the critically endangered saiga antelope Saiga tatarica, populate the steppes, while wild boar, jackals, and pink deer roam the river deltas. The mountain habitats support brown bears, lynx, alpine ibex and other species of mountain goats, and the highly endangered snow leopard. People and culture. From the beginning to the end of the 20th century, the population of the area that is now Uzbekistan increased fivefold. Today the republic has one of the fastest growing populations among the former Soviet states. Almost two-thirds of the population lives in rural areas. In Karakalpakstan, roughly half of the population is rural. Ethnic groups. There are about 60 different ethnic groups in Uzbekistan. Ethnic Uzbeks form the largest group, comprising roughly three-quarters of the population. Russians, Tajiks, and Kazakhs are the largest minorities, with Tatars and other groups forming the balance of the population. Urban and rural populations are composed along ethnic lines. Most rural people are Uzbek, while Russians, Tatars, and Kazakhs comprise most of the urban population. Ethnic Karakalpaks make up the largest group in Karakalpakstan, though the population includes Uzbeks and Kazakhs. Language. Uzbek, the official language of modern-day Uzbekistan, is a Turkic language closely related to Kazakh and Uyghur. Prior to Soviet rule, what is now the national Uzbek language was actually one of many regional dialects. Although Uzbek was promoted as a distinct language during Soviet rule, the official state language was Russian. The historic written language of the Uzbeks was Chagatai, a Turkic language used throughout Central Asia in literature and culture. Today Chagatai is sometimes called Old Uzbek. It is no longer spoken anywhere in Central Asia, but is found in ancient literature and other scholarly works. Modern Uzbek is written using the Roman alphabet, which was employed during the early Soviet period, from 1929 to 1940. Between 1940 and 1994, the Cyrillic alphabet was used. Prior to 1929, Chagatai was written using the Arabic alphabet. Religion. The majority of the population follows Islam, primarily the Sunnite branch, and the government exerts some control over how the religion is practiced. Although the Uzbek constitution guarantees religious freedom, the government shows little tolerance for Muslims who do not practice their religion according to government guidelines. There are also small communities of Russian Orthodox Christians and of Jews. In ancient times, the city of Bukhara was an important center for Asian Jewry. Following independence, many Jews emigrated, mostly to Israel. By 2000, they comprised less than 1% of the population. Culture. Music holds a special place in Uzbek culture, as does dance and storytelling. Uzbek folklore chronicles the history of the people, and contains great legends and epic poems. For centuries, Uzbek cities produced great scholars, poets, and writers whose collective works are greatly admired around the world. Many beautiful examples of ancient architecture, including those of some famous mosques, can be seen in Uzbekistan. The country has more than 4,000 historic monuments, most of which are in its great cities. In Bukhara is the 10th-century tomb of Ismail I, ruler of the Samanid dynasty of ancient Persia. Many great mosques and mausoleums from the 14th and 15th centuries are in the ancient city of Samarkand. There are also many beautiful buildings and museums in the capital city of Tashkent. Among the most precious holdings is the Uthman Koran, an original transcription of the Koran that is housed in the Tashkent Museum of the History of the Peoples of Uzbekistan. The people of Uzbek practice many folk arts, including ceramics, carving and engraving, textile work such as weaving and embroidery, and fine arts such as miniature painting. Handicrafts such as jewelry and the carpets produced in Bukhara are known and valued around the world. Uzbek families are often fairly large, and traditionally close-knit. In the cities and towns, most families live in a private house with a courtyard called a havli. Except in cold weather, the family spends much of its leisure time in the courtyard. In summer, they usually take their meals there, relaxing under canopies or trellises. Parents hold a place of great authority in the Uzbek family. Children help with many domestic tasks. Extended families gather for important life events, such as engagements and marriages, celebrations of the birth of a child, funerals, and certain anniversaries of the death of a family member. Although most people in Uzbekistan wear Western-style clothing, traditional garments are worn on special occasions, and a few have been incorporated into modern dress. Education and social welfare. Like many of the former Soviet republics, Uzbekistan faced many challenges with its education system and public administration following independence. Without central planning and budgetary assistance from Moscow, the newly independent states had to undertake efforts from curriculum reform to infrastructure update and repair. Education. For many centuries, some Uzbek cities were famed as educational centers. Thousands of students came each year from many parts of Asia for instruction at Islamic madrasas, or seminaries. See religious education, Islam. During the Soviet period, however, education was modeled after the Soviet system. It became centralized and was administered from Moscow. An ambitious campaign greatly improved literacy rates. Instruction was secular, however, Muslim schools were closed by the government. Following independence, several madrasas were re-established, though a 1993 resolution banning private administration of schools transferred control to the state. During the Soviet period, instruction was in Russian. Since independence, all instruction is in Uzbek and other Central Asian languages, though classes in Russian are offered, as are courses in French, English, and Arabic. There is a great emphasis on Uzbek history and culture. Education in Uzbekistan begins at age 6, and lasts for 11 years. After that, there are opportunities for higher education and technical training. There are many institutions of higher education in Uzbekistan, including Tashkent State University, Tashkent Islamic University, and Samarkand State University. The Uzbek Academy of Sciences was established in Tashkent in 1943. As an autonomous republic, Karakalpakstan has its own school system, as well as Nukus State University and a branch of the Uzbek Academy of Sciences. Social welfare, hospital care improved after the onset of Soviet rule in 1921, but by the late 20th century public health in Uzbekistan faced grave challenges. These were due mostly to problems stemming from environmental contamination and pollution from industry. Illness and mortality rates among mothers and young children today are among the highest of the former Soviet Asian republics. Following independence, most hospitals and clinics were owned and controlled by the state, but by the mid-1990s, some entities were privatized, primarily pharmacies and small clinics. Major cities. Tashkent is the capital of Uzbekistan and one of the largest cities in Central Asia. Its location along the Chirchik River and the Trans-Caspian Railroad route has helped make Tashkent an important trade center. Grain and cotton are the most important exports, and the city has one of the largest cotton textile mills in Asia. The republic's second largest city is Samarkand, located in the Zirafshan River Valley. It is one of the oldest cities in Central Asia, dating back at least 2,500 years. Its location at the crossroads of trade routes from India and China established Samarkand as an important commercial center in ancient and medieval times. Today, it remains a vital hub for trade as well as manufacturing. Like Samarkand, Bukhara was situated on the Silk Road trade routes. It was part of the Arab Caliphate in the 8th century, and is considered one of the holiest Islamic cities. It is also an important center of Islamic study and education, as evidenced by its many beautiful mosques and madrasas. Among Uzbekistan's other historic and notable cities are Khiva, a manufacturing center, and Namangan, a center for cotton and silk production. Nukus, in southwestern Uzbekistan, is the capital of Karakalpakstan. Established in 1932, the city is young compared to other Uzbek cities. It is an important regional industrial center. Economy. Agriculture is the mainstay of the Uzbek economy, though trade and services are also critical. During the Soviet period, the economy was subject to central planning from Moscow. Since independence, the Uzbek government has struggled to implement reforms and to encourage foreign investment. Agriculture. Uzbekistan was the chief source of the Soviet Union's cotton supply and remains one of the world's largest cotton producers. To encourage economic diversity, however, the government has encouraged a shift toward grain production. Regionally, Uzbekistan is a major center for raising karakul sheep and silkworms. The rich soil supports production of a wide variety of fruits and vegetables. However, Uzbekistan faces serious irrigation problems. The systems built during the 20th century exhausted the region's rivers. Numerous large canals and reservoirs have been built to help address this. Manufacturing and services, machinery and heavy equipment, especially products for cotton cultivation and agricultural use, are the most important industrial products. Textile production also contributes significantly to the economy. Service industries have become a major component of the Uzbek economy. In 2000, this sector was responsible for more than 2/5 of the gross domestic product and almost half of all employment. The strongest growth in this sector has been in catering, legal, and financial services. Tourism is also an important contributor. Mining and energy. Although it faces chronic and serious water shortages, Uzbekistan is generally rich in natural resources. There are a number of mining belts that produce metallic ores such as copper, zinc, lead, and some gold. Uzbekistan also has considerable reserves of petroleum, natural gas, and coal, and easily meets its own energy requirements. In addition to fossil fuels, the country produces large quantities of hydroelectric power. Trade, transportation, and communications. The long tradition of trade remains a vital component of the modern Uzbek economy. The main trading partner is Russia, though trade relations are also strong with Switzerland, Germany, the United Kingdom, the United States, and Ukraine. Uzbekistan's main exports include cotton fiber, energy and agricultural products, and gold. The top imports include machinery, metalworking products and processed foods. Most goods are transported by truck, since problems with the Uzbek roadways lead to many delays. Old rail lines connect the major cities with other centers in Central Asia, and with Moscow and Siberia. There are international airports at Tashkent, Samarkand, and Urgench. Domestic air service is provided at several other cities. Although the Uzbek constitution forbids censorship, in practice the country's media and telecommunications are heavily monitored by the state. There are no independent news outlets, though more than 400 newspapers are published, most of them are owned by the government or political parties. Uzbekistan has more than 30 independent television stations. There are also numerous radio stations, many of which broadcast nationally. There are also state-owned television and radio stations. Government. The 1992 constitution adopted after independence provides for a government composed of legislative, judicial, and executive branches. Most of the power rests with the president, who serves as both chief of state and head of the government. The president appoints a cabinet of ministers, subject to legislative approval. Although the constitution mandates a maximum of 2 5-year terms for the president, these can be extended via a special referendum. Such a referendum was passed in 2002, extending the president's term to 7 years. The Uzbek legislature is the Oli Majlis, or Supreme Assembly. It is a unicameral, or single-chambered, parliament, with 250 members, 83 are directly elected by the people, and 167 are appointed by local councils. Members serve 5-year terms. A special referendum passed in 2002 called for the assembly to be replaced in 2004 by a bicameral, or two-chambered, legislature. The constitution provides for a judicial system that is independent of the government. The highest courts are the Constitutional Court, the Supreme Court, and the High Economic Court. A separate Supreme Court in Karakalpakstan handles issues pertaining to that territory. The Republic also has its own constitution and parliament. History. Traces of human habitation in the area that is now Uzbekistan date back some 55,000 to 70,000 years. By the first millennium BC, the Amu Darya area was the site of several powerful states such as Bactria. By the 1st century BC, the ancient cities of Samarkand, Tashkent, Bukhara, and several others, had become established stops along the Great Silk Road trade routes that connected Europe with China and India. Following the introduction of Islam to Central Asia in the 8th century, several large migrations into what is now Uzbekistan brought settlers from numerous ethnic groups. During the 14th century, several Turkic Mongol tribes who had migrated from Siberia into Central Asia adopted the name Uzbek after the Mongol Ozbeg Uzbek Khan, a Muslim who ruled the Golden Horde, see Mongol Empire. Timur Lenk and the Uzbek Khanates. From the 14th to 16th centuries, Central Asia was part of the empire of Timur Lenk, or Tamerlane, and his successors. It was during Timur's rule 1380–1405 that Samarkand bloomed as a cultural center. Timur made the city his capital, and supported the migrations of artisans and scholars from his other territories. His patronage of the arts and the sciences was continued by his successors, most notably his grandson Ula Beg, whose fascination with astronomy led him to establish an observatory in Samarkand. His observations and measurements of more than 1,000 stars was at that time the largest cataloging effort undertaken since those of the 2nd century Greek astronomer Ptolemy. Following Timur Lenk's death in 1405, his empire split into two sections. The subsequent political squabbles attracted the Uzbek nomadic tribes who proceeded to conquer much of Central Asia in the early 16th century. The Uzbeks established several powerful states, but these soon weakened because of ceaseless political clashes, internal power struggles, and wars with the Persians. In the 17th and 18th centuries, raids by neighboring Kazakh tribes and Mongols perpetuated this instability. Khanates established at Khiva, Kokand, and Bukhara controlled the region until the 19th century. The Russians arrive. In his quest to expand his empire, the Russian Tsar Peter I sent expeditions into Central Asia in the mid-18th century. Reports about the commercial potential of the region led to large emigrations of Russian merchants to the area. They established strong trade relationships with Uzbek merchants, particularly in Tashkent and Khiva. By the mid-1800s, Russia had a sizable presence in Central Asia. The Kazakh lands were added to the Russian Empire in the 1840s, and by 1876 the Bukhara, Khiva, and Kokand Khanates had been conquered and annexed. The region eventually became part of the Russian province of West Turkestan, which also included present-day Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Turkmenistan. The Soviet period. At the turn of the 20th century, modern communications were established in West Turkestan with the arrival of the telegraph, telephone, and press. Railroads connecting Tashkent and Samarkand aided in the transportation of goods. Like most Central Asians of this period, the Uzbek people fell into one of two groups: those who resisted modernization of social and religious institutions, and those who embraced these reforms. The former consisted mainly of the intelligentsia and the clergy, while the latter group was centered around an ardent movement called the Jadids, who favored not only the modernization of infrastructure but also then radical ideas about women's rights, secular education, and public health. The Russian Revolution of 1917 increased the unrest permeating Central Asia. Attempts by Uzbeks to establish an autonomous government were unsuccessful. Russian Red Army forces controlled regional revolts, and by 1920 the local rulers of Bukhara and Khiva had been deposed. The following year, the region that is now Uzbekistan was incorporated into the Turkestan Autonomous Soviet Socialist Republic (ASSR). Between 1924 and 1925 the Soviet government repartitioned West Turkestan into monoethnic territories, that is, each territory or republic was formed around a major ethnic group. Thus the Uzbek Soviet Socialist Republic (SSR) was established in 1924. Karakalpakstan evolved through a series of Soviet reinventions. It was designated as an oblast province of the Kazakh ASSR in 1925, but in 1930 control was transferred to the Russian Soviet Federal Socialist Republic. 2 years later, Karakalpakstan was made an autonomous republic. Though it was incorporated within the Uzbek SSR in 1936, it retained its right to self-rule. Like the constituents of other Soviet states, Uzbeks suffered the economic plans, relocations, and purges imposed under Stalinist rule in the 1930s. See Stalin, Joseph. Communication and economic and cultural exchange with countries outside the USSR were restricted. During World War II, the Soviet Central Regime ordered the forced migration of thousands of Russian, Polish, and Jewish people to the Uzbek Republic. Following Stalin's death in 1953, many restraints were removed from Uzbek institutions. The largest cities were reopened to visitors from non-communist countries. Large numbers of Uzbeks rose to important governmental and political posts. Much of the latter success was due to the efforts of Sharif Rashidov, who served as first secretary, or head, of the Communist Party of Uzbekistan from 1959 to 1982. Along with these changes, however, came a rise in nationalism. Following Rashidov's death, Moscow attempted to regain political control by non-Uzbeks. Massive purges of the Uzbek leadership were implemented, which only served to strengthen nationalist and anti-Soviet sentiment. Ethnic clashes also increased, and by the late 1980s it became clear that Soviet control was waning. An independent republic, in 1989 ethnic violence directed by the Uzbek majority against the Meskhetians, a Turkic minority, erupted. The unrest in the Fergana Valley had economic, racial, and religious overtones. The next year more violence erupted along the Kyrgyz border. More than 100 people were killed in the ethnic disturbance. Moscow responded by appointing Islam Karimov, an outsider to Uzbek politics, as head of the Uzbek Communist Party. In June 1990 the party, along with the Uzbek parliament, approved a declaration that demanded greater rights to self-government. The following year, on August 31, 1991, the republic declared its independence. However, it remained a part of the Soviet Union until that country's dissolution in December 1991. Karimov was elected president of the newly named Republic of Uzbekistan. In 1995, a special referendum extended his term until 2000, when he was re-elected in an unopposed election. A subsequent referendum passed in 2002 supported an extension of the presidential term from 5 to 7 years. The new measures will go into effect following the 2005 presidential elections. After independence, the Communist Party retained power by changing its name to the Popular Democratic Party. Although the 1991 constitution granted many civil liberties and other democratic tenets, in practice these were often ignored or violated by the new regime. Opposition political parties were prevented from participating in elections. Advocates of political freedom frequently were victims of arrests or kidnapping. These and other human rights violations brought international criticism. Nationalist sentiment expanded in the decade following independence, leading to the emigration of many ethnic groups, including Tatars, Slavs, Jews, and Europeans.